All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of P. Scott Sports Talk. I'm your host, Prescott Kelly. Hall of Fame games tomorrow, Steelers and Cowboys. And that means one thing, and literally one thing only, that football is back. That's it. The game itself does not matter. Dak isn't going to play, which I don't think he was going to anyways. And also, Cowboys fans, you can stop freaking out. Shoulder injury is not a big deal. I've ruptured my Achilles beforehand. When you have those types of crazy, and I know it's not what he did, but when you have really, really excruciating, leg injuries, especially to the lower half, you overcompensate. You walk different, both in your upper body and lower body. He was just overcompensating as far as throwing motions are concerned, as far as the way that I see it. I don't think that this is going to be a huge setback for Dak. Chill out. If he gets injured, he gets injured. It is what it is. But this just feels like an overcompensating thing as far as his throwing motions are concerned. He should be fine as long as there's nothing catastrophic that hasn't happened. Anything catastrophic that happens to him during the year, you guys should be good. But really, the Hall of Fame game doesn't mean anything, and preseason games don't mean anything. Just about every single roster spot is already predetermined before the season even starts. Like every year, it seems like we see, regardless of your favorite team. Obviously, I'm a Bills fan. Every year, we see a running back or a wide receiver or a quarterback make a couple throws, make a couple plays, and the fans start clamoring, he's got to have a roster spot. Put it in context. It's a 6th round guy going against another 6th round guy. Largely not going to make the cut. You got to impress the entire way through practice and training camp and preseason and really ball out. Like you can't have one moment, per game. And that's going to be the defining moment in your career. There's got to be more to it than that. Now, we've seen undrafted guys have Hall of Fame careers. Very few and far between. That's why you can't count on it. We've seen late round draft picks have Hall of Fame careers. Tom Brady is an outlier. It doesn't usually happen that way. Guys who make it in this league are between 2nd and 4th rounders. The 1st rounders, they flame out. They flame out all the time. Or they don't live up to the hype. But usually that 1 through 4 range, that's where you're going to find all of your starters and guys who are really going to make an impact. Again, I know there's outliers, but just chill the hell out for just a moment. The preseason largely does not matter. The only thing is it's to get guys a few reps. And if somebody gets injured in either the Hall of Fame game or a preseason game, everybody wants to get up in arms about just canceling the preseason. But we see early injuries in the season because there is very limited preseason games or very limited off-train. And this is negotiated by the players. They negotiated this. When you see these types of injuries, it's largely because you're not in football shape. Now, I'm not in any type of shape, so I can't really say one way or the other. But I would imagine if you're not in that mode of completely blowing off the line if you're a defensive lineman or trying to accelerate on every single play as a wide receiver, I could see those types of injuries happen because you're not in quote-unquote football shape. But you don't want to practice. You don't want to have preseason games. If the injuries happen, the injuries happen. It is what it is. Now, the flip side of that is that's another reason why these players want to get guaranteed money. And I totally understand that too. Because even if you don't get injured, you're going to deal with it on the back end regardless. But to get back to my original point, the preseason really just doesn't matter for most of these teams and most of these players. The only team I would say that I'm really intrigued about when it comes to the preseason and what it actually matters for is the 49ers and the Chicago Bears. Because they're the only 2 teams right now that really have a decision to make at quarterback. Andy Dalton is most likely going to start for the Bears, but Justin Fields could easily creep up. Jimmy Garoppolo is supposed to be the starter in San Francisco, but Trey Lance, this isn't anything that we've talked about beforehand, either on this show or, the podcast, the sports page, whatever. We've never touched on this. But last week I was watching training camps I think it was last Saturday, and they were showing all 32 teams. And as far as the rookie quarterbacks are concerned, the only one that seemed like it was legitimately taking it seriously was Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance to me is the biggest question mark, obviously, because he played 1 game last year, then he missed a season. The dude's super athletic, has a big arm, seems like he's got great character, but you never know what you're going to get. But when I saw all 3 of these guys go, Justin Fields, and I'm excluding Trevor Lawrence because he's going to start regardless, and so is Zach Wilson. But when I saw all 3 of these guys go, Justin Fields, and I'm excluding Trevor Lawrence because he's going to start regardless, and so is Zach Wilson. But when I saw all 3 of these guys go, Justin Fields, and I'm excluding Trevor Lawrence because he's going to start regardless, and so is Zach Wilson. But I'm going to lump Zach Wilson into it because he did have the very long contract extension kind of holdout. Now, he was going to sign it. We all know that. But Trey Lance seemed to take everything more serious than everybody else. But Chicago is in that, again, they're in that same kind of boat of we got a veteran quarterback, but we moved up to get this guy. Both teams did, San Francisco and Chicago. They both moved up to get their guy. Those two training camps and those two preseasons, to me, are the only ones that matter. Everybody else pretty much has their rosters set and they're ready to go. So now that we got that out of the way, I really just came on here to do one specific thing, and that is to teach you guys the difference between playoff teams and Super Bowl teams. Everybody thinks that they got a Super Bowl roster. The NFL does a great job of this. They do a fantastic job of creating hope for fan bases that literally have no shot in hell at a Lombardi trophy. Every year this is our year. Now, I'm not one of those guys. I've actually been labeled as a self-hating Bills fan. To a degree, I could imagine that would be correct. I don't feel like I am. I just feel like I've seen this movie for 30 plus years. And so far, there's nothing to show me that the ending credits will be any different than what they have been. Because any team can be a playoff team. Sorry, I paused and I went back and I came back, so I actually kind of lost my spot. So where I'm at, this is where we're starting from. So any team can be a playoff team, especially with the way that it's currently constructed. We added another spot. So 14 teams can get into the playoffs. That's almost half the league. Okay. The way that I'm looking at this, and the way that I've always looked at this, is playoff teams are just playoff teams. I've gone through on this show and other places saying there's way too many teams in this league who are just between, now this is, I'm going off of the previous scheduling of 16 games instead of 17, but damn near every team is 6-10 to 10-6. You get a couple bounces either way. You're a playoff team or you're drafting in the top 10. That's just how the league works. There's 3 or 4 teams that are absolute crud, and there's 4 or 5 teams that we know are in the running for a Super Bowl. So just because you're a playoff team does not mean you're a Super Bowl team. The NFC South and the NFC East over the past 10 years are a prime example of this. We see teams go to Super Bowls, then follow the playoffs. It happens sometimes. NFC South and NFC East, they recycle division winners all the time. But the reason why I say that there's a difference between playoff team and Super Bowl team is as long as Tom Brady's playing, he's going to have a spot in at least the divisional round every single year. As long as Patrick Mahomes is playing, same thing. Chiefs aren't going anywhere. Bucks aren't going anywhere. When we look at the NFL and we look at Super Bowls, and I actually have this up because everybody wants to say it's our year. We have a chance. There's 32 teams in the NFL, which means that at the start of the season, you have a 3.125 chance of winning the Super Bowl. If you told a Jacksonville Jaguars fan or New York Jets fan right now, you got a 3% chance of winning the Super Bowl, they would take that. There's a reason why there's odds. Okay? Anybody can beat anybody on any given Sunday, but not everybody does. So, as a prime example of when this can work, the Bills, my Bills, were a 17.5-point underdog to Minnesota. I believe it was Josh Allen's rookie year. It was one of his first couple starts. This is when he jumped over, I believe it was Anthony Barr. And the Bills were a 17-point plus dog and ended up winning by double figures. And that was the first time I believe that had happened in NFL history, to be a 17-point dog and still win by double figures. So anybody can win by any stretch of the imagination. But when it comes to football and when it comes to playoffs, the better team usually wins. Now, obviously there are caveats. The Giants, twice as a wild card team, beat the Patriots once when they were undefeated. I'm not saying that it can't happen. But the Giants both of those teams were not projected to be, bottom 3, bottom 4 teams in the NFL. They're still projected to be playoff teams. And playoff teams is one thing. Once you get into the dance, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, as an overwhelming majority when it comes to the NFL, there's a finite amount of teams who can legitimately do it. And I'm going to give you some numbers real quick. since the Super Bowl era, there's only 4 teams who have never even been to a Super Bowl. Texans, Lions, Jaguars, Cleveland Browns. Now, the Browns before the Super Bowl era were a monster. Them and Otto Graham. They won multiple championships. Same with my Bills. The Bills had back-to-backers right before the Super Bowl era started. So the Bills have world championships. They don't have a Super Bowl. But those 4 teams haven't even been to a Super Bowl. Now, when we look at this, how many teams have actually won a Super Bowl? I'm going to go back through this real quick because I got it on my phone because obviously there's way too much for me to go through. So the Chargers, Titans, Cardinals, Bengals, Panthers, Falcons, Vikings, and Bills have all been to Super Bowls, but never won one. So only 20 teams. We've had 55 Super Bowls and only 20 winners. Seahawks, Rams, Eagles, Bears, Jets, and that was a long ass time ago. Saints all have 1. That's it. Dolphins have 2, haven't won one in forever. Colts have 2, Bucks have 2, Ravens have 2, Chiefs had 2 and just got their second. Broncos 3, Washington team 3, Oakland or the Raiders 3, Giants 4, Packers 4, and then we get into Cowboys, Niners with 5, Patriots 6, Steelers 6, and Tom Brady with 7. That's not a whole lot of parity. The NFL likes to pretend that there is a lot, but there isn't. Your team might be a playoff team, but your team is not a Super Bowl team. Unless you are a fan right now of the Kansas City Chiefs, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, maybe Green Bay, maybe San Francisco, maybe the Cleveland Browns. The reason why I leave Buffalo out of this real quick is because, like I said earlier, I've seen this movie way too many times where we start off hot, we decline. Now, an AFC Championship game is something the Bills haven't been to in a long time. Long time. Jim Kelly years, long time. But I'm not willing to just hop on that bandwagon right now. I'm just not. Defensive line isn't that great. Offensive line is still suspect. I want to see another full year from Josh Allen before I want the Bills to fully commit. Because the money they're going to start handing out, the money they're handing out to quarterbacks right now is stupid anyways. It's absurd. And it's just going to go up because the cap is going to go up. I actually had Dylan Larson on the show right before the draft, and he said that the NFL cap could essentially double within the next few years, which I thought was a logical absurdity. But now that we're coming off a pandemic and we're getting all the revenue in the seats, the butts back in the seats, and people getting ready to watch because that's just how the world works, I actually feel like that's a pretty true statement. But there are very few teams who can actually win a Super Bowl. Kansas City, yes. Buffalo, I don't think so. I think there's too many holes in their game, and I'm not willing to, especially defensive line, offensive line, I don't trust. I don't see that. Buffalo is ranked number 3 in almost everybody's power rankings. And if I can digress for a moment, power rankings are the laziest thing that you could possibly do, especially at the beginning of a season, like before one starts. 90% of them are AFC, NFC championships, and like just one random team. And that's what we saw, like every NBC, ABC, ESPN, it's all Chiefs, Bucks, Bills, Packers, Ravens, or you can rotate in the 49ers. You can rotate in the Rams, something like that. But it's the same 4 teams, and then there's one team that's considered like continuously being recycled in. The only teams that really have a chance are KC, barring injuries. KC, Tampa, I would say San Francisco, if their quarterback is really, regardless of who's going to be at the helm, because I don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo. I know they got to a Super Bowl with him, but they got there in spite of him. He was basically Trent Dilfer, but slightly better. Regardless of if it's him or whether it's Trey Lance. I like San Francisco. In the AFC, I like Cleveland a lot. I think they got a lot better. That's going to be a team to be reckoned with. And Pittsburgh, I'm sorry. It's done, man. The offensive line is in shambles now. Ben's a shell of himself. And I don't care that, he came in great shape. That's great. Your offensive line is absolute trash. Pittsburgh, your run is done. And you've done a poor job of. I've criticized the Steelers and the Falcons specifically for paying for past performances when it comes to their quarterbacks. And you shot yourselves in the foot with Roethlisberger, and he's been holding over your head. I might retire, I might not. Well, it's right around the corner. You haven't addressed it yet. But all these other teams, I just don't believe in. So the Colts, I like the Colts. Carson Wentz is injured now. No surprise there. But I feel like if Carson could have stayed healthy, the Colts were going to win the AFC South. I don't believe in the Titans. I told you this last year. I started this podcast late February, early March of last year. And I said, I just don't trust Tennessee. I don't know what it is, but I just don't trust them. To me, they're the Utah Jazz of the NFL. You can have a great regular season. I just don't trust you. And it happened again. And the defense isn't as good as what people wanted to believe. It's just not. The defense is not that great. You can't ride Derrick Henry for that long. I don't believe that Ryan Tannehill is great. Ryan Tannehill is Ryan Tannehill. He was getting a bunch of heat when he was in Miami, but that organization was trash. Then he goes to Tennessee and he has better weapons, and he becomes the Ryan Tannehill for MVP talk last year was absurd. If you voted, or if you are a voter and voted for Ryan Tannehill, I have zero respect for you. It's just you're being prisoner of the moment. TD interception ratio, yards, it's great, but it's not because of him. O-line, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown was open all the damn time. If you stick to, and this is why the coaching actually matters in the NFL, because Tennessee knows who they are. They're going to win a lot of games, and I'm not disrespecting them, but they're not a Super Bowl team. It's the same thing with Baltimore. Baltimore's going to win games. You can hate on Lamar Jackson as much as you want to, but the dude wins 80% of his games. Baltimore is another team where we're going to see this year if the Baltimore Ravens can actually elevate and be a championship team. If after this year, and this is why I think that nobody has actually signed Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson, or to long-term deals. Because of really two reasons. One, cap's going to go up. So the agents are saying, we don't want to lock into a deal now where we can make more money later. And the teams are saying, you haven't really done much for us so far. Josh Allen, yes, went to an AFC championship last year. Lamar Jackson's been to the playoffs every year that he's been in the playoffs. Now he's lost every year, but he's been to the playoffs every year. And Baker they were close to being the Chiefs. Now that was when Mahomes had to go out with a concussion, blah, 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 all that stuff. We know this. But those three guys, I thought that every team would wait until after this season. Mostly because I didn't feel like anybody was sold on them. Because in the NFL, we all know it's a quarterback-driven league, and that cliche has been driven into the ground so hard. But it's true. And I'm not sure if these guys all think that they have the right guy. I think Buffalo feels like they do. But I'm glad that they're waiting, because if Josh Allen does have another down year, it's not that I wanted to cut him, but then you have more leverage to actually negotiate a contract that makes more sense instead of paying somebody $40+ million a year instead of a 1-year flash in the pan. Baltimore, I think that Baltimore is in the trickiest situation, but it's mostly because when things break down, Lamar Jackson can still make you plays in the regular season. Playoffs, everything's ratcheted up. And if you don't have that number one spot, got the home field advantage, it's going to be real dicey. Baker's a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's a better athlete. But again, this year, and I got a little bit sidetracked. This is the year for Lamar Jackson, though, because now he's got Sammy Watkins. They went and got the guy from Minnesota, Rashad Bateman, excuse me. They actually legit got him wide receivers. This is the thing I'm looking for with Baltimore. I actually hope that they struggle early and can find a way to get Lamar Jackson to actually throw the ball outside of the numbers and trust his arm, trust his instinct. He's got the wide receivers now. If he can't do it now, this is the whole reason why I love them waiting. Then don't put the money into him. Do exactly what you did with him last year or when you drafted him. Rookie salary, build up your roster. You got to restart. But it's better than paying him $40+ million a year, 50 if the cap goes up again to what we're expecting it to be. You just recalibrate and you restart. There's going to be other quarterbacks. And the shelf life of these guys, one, the shelf life is so short, but the expectations are so high that if you don't show the progress, you got to get rid of somebody. And especially with Patrick Mahomes, we basically handed the AFC was Tom Brady's for 2 decades. Now he's gone, but Patrick Mahomes runs that joint now. What are you going to do? You got to have a much better team than Kansas City does. And you're probably not going to have that if your quarterback isn't as good. But you can't have a better team if you're paying a limited running quarterback who can't throw outside the numbers. So this is the year for Lamar Jackson. You have the weapons now. The defense is still good. Offensive line is not as good because you traded away Orlando Brown. But this is the moment. If you don't grow as a quarterback, I have no problems with Baltimore moving on from him. And I hate to say it, but I almost kind of feel the same way about my Bills with Josh Allen. If he regresses, because that's the thing, from year 1 to 2, it was all hero ball, can't read coverages, holds onto the ball too long. But his first years in the league, he had a trash wide receiving core. Not trash, but because John Brown isn't trash and Cole Beasley isn't trash, but they're playing out of position. Then he gets Stephon Diggs and everything kind of works itself in, and you see what he can do. But again, if this is the flash in the pan, once you get tape on a guy, if Josh Allen regresses, I don't want you to invest $45, potentially $50 million a year into this guy. The biggest thing for Buffalo, because their defense I feel like has been highly overrated, you've got to address your D-line. Rousseau is fine. You got him in the draft. Epinesa, you got him last year from Iowa, but he didn't do anything for you last year. Jerry Hughes is about to retire. They've got a lot of holes they got to fill in the next couple of years. And if you're going to put all your money into Josh Allen, the Bills are not going to be good for that long. This is why everything is fluid. And you can't just sit on, well, we were this good last year, we'll be this good this year. That isn't how it works. We see teams all the time make it to AFC or NFC championship games and then not even make the playoffs. Like we just talked about. AFC South, NFC East. They recycle division winners all the time. Everything needs context. Now, injuries obviously play some of this, so I'm not going to just blow it out the water with that. But to me, there's only a handful of teams who could really win anything. It is. And I'll go ahead and recap this real quick because I think this is going on longer than I thought. And with me and my ADD, I get on different tangents, and I try not to, but this is the world that I live in. It's Kansas City. It's Tampa Bay. Again, if everybody can stay healthy and they can figure out the quarterback position, even if they struggle at first, I feel like towards the end of the season, San Francisco, I like Green Bay to make at least a divisional round, but I feel like there's too much. If they get another situation like they did last year and LaFleur takes Rodgers off the field, I feel like if they get into that specific scenario again, that's where things are going to get tight. If you're in the divisional round or the conference championship and it's make or break, who's going to make the call? Is it going to be LaFleur or is it going to be Rodgers? That one's going to be fun to watch. But those 4 teams in the NFC, to me, the Saints are garbage. And the only reason why I bring that up now is because I had, as far as the power rankings are concerned, and this is, like I said, I hate these things. I think they're a crapshoot. But I was talking to a buddy of mine on Facebook earlier, and the top 5, I believe it was from CBS Sports, was Chiefs, Bucks, Bills, Packers, Ravens, or those two might be reversed. But then number 6 was the Rams, and number 7 was the Saints. And I'm thinking, there's no way in hell that the New Orleans Saints could be the 7th best football team in the NFL. I would probably take the entire NFC South over the New Orleans Saints. Carolina got a lot better. You can rag on Darnold if you want to, but there was no weapons in New York. Offensive line was terrible. Defensive was terrible. everything was just an absolute dumpster fire. He goes to a team with a much better offensive line, Christian McCaffrey. He already knows Robbie Anderson. They've got a lot more weapons offensively and defensively. The NFC South is diminished considerably, especially since Drew Brees is retired. And Drew Brees, I'm not talking about Super Bowls and everything else like that. Regular season, that dude is going to get you to the playoffs. But now you don't have to worry about that. The Falcons, I'm not really sure what to think about them either. Offensively, they're going to be putting up points. But defensively, can they get it to work? I don't know. All that I know is that the New Orleans Saints are not the 7th best team in the NFL. They're not even the 2nd best or 3rd best team in their division, the way that I look at it. Now, we're getting a little bit off topic. Again, sorry. I swear we're going to wrap this up, and I'm going to get there. I'm getting parched. And we're back. But the Rams are a team to me that I feel like in the NFC are another team that has the ability to be a Super Bowl contender. They got the best defensive lineman arguably ever in Aaron Donald. Now, I know old heads will probably argue with me on that, but as of right now, I don't want to hear it. He's the best interior and outside rusher on the defensive line that this league has right now. They have the best cornerback in Jalen Ramsey. When you got those two things, defensively, you're already there. And offensively, you upgraded crazy when you got Matt Stafford over Jared Goff. Simps will say, well, Jared Goff got you a Super Bowl. And I would say, yeah, with a legendary defense, offensive. I boofed it. I boofed that. I'm hoping that I can record that later. I'll try to edit it. I'm not sure if I even can. Anyway, Jared Goff got you a Super Bowl. But that was with a great defense, all the offensive talent in the world, and you still boo-booed it up. Then he had a down year. Jared Goff, to me, is one of the biggest QBs who have been lucky, like one of the luckiest quarterbacks that we've ever seen in the NFL. Like that to not win a Super Bowl, like Trent Dilfer, you can throw in there. Lucky guys who got a ring. But he's somebody who, how highly he was drafted and what he's been able to do. Detroit's done, man. I see a lot of things where like Detroit feels like, oh, we're so happy with Jared Goff. Yeah, you say that because you have him now. The Rams are a much, much better team because they have Matt Stafford now. He's somebody, if the play breaks down, he can improvise. He can do something after the fact. Jared Goff, not so much. You got to handhold and kindergarten this guy through the entire playbook and game. It's a miracle that the Rams even went to a Super Bowl and have won multiple playoff games, period. Like, Jared Goff, to me, is one of the most overrated quarterbacks that we've ever seen. I'm going to lump Jimmy Garoppolo in there, too. You guys might hate me for that, but I don't really care. But when it really boils down to, there is. Even though there's 32 teams, and you have a 3.125 chance of winning the Super Bowl, no, you don't. That list is 5 or 6 teams long. Now, if Mahomes gets injured and done for the year, that obviously changes things. Same thing with Brady. Injuries play a part in this. But if we're looking from strictly coaching and talent and specifically quarterback position, there's 5 or 6 teams that have a chance. Your playoff team is not a Super Bowl team. And that's the truth. As you can see, if you're looking to look forward to, as you can see, if you want to look for the plot, as you can see, if you're interested in listening to the podcast, you can see right there, Peace Scott Sports Talk. Over here is where you can find it. Up there is what it's called. Let's put myself in the nose, basically. Anyway, I appreciate you guys listening and watching. This is a new avenue I was trying to go to. I'm thinking about trying to expand this over to YouTube and doing other video podcasting type of networks. And I'm just doing this right now with OBS. We'll figure out if I can actually... There's 50,000 different ways to do it, and 49,500 of them seem to be wrong between platforms and streaming services and everything like that. I'm going one day at a time with this. But for those of you that have been with me from day one, I really appreciate this. You've listened to Peace Scott Sports Talk. As always, stay up, stay blessed, and your team doesn't matter. That's it.